When life gets unpredictable, preparation matters. In medicine, it's all about staying alert, ready for whatever comes through the door. On the road, it's no different. That's why Volvo designs vehicles to help anticipate risk, reduce harm, and protect lives. The Volvo XC90's advanced safety systems inspire confident decisions wherever the road takes you. The Volvo XC90, for life. Proud sponsor of the Pit Podcast. Learn more at volvocars.ca/safety.
Hour 3 of the Elias Macko Show, and we are continuing Swipe Right Week on the program. If you can believe it, singles have been swiping right for a decade. Tinder launched in 2012. Just 2 years later, the app had 1 billion swipes. Since then, it has spawned a plethora of copycat apps. Every day this week, we've been tackling a different angle of dating apps, their successes, their failures, and their place in 21st century society and dating. Today, we take a look at why dating apps might actually be making it harder for people to find love. Tech may actually be stumping us at expanding our relationships by enabling us to find quick fixes and easy solutions in complex love situations. With more on this, we go to Rebecca Rashid, producer of The Atlantic's How-To series. Rebecca, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Elias. I'm excited to be with you.
Yeah, and this week has been a lot of fun, to be honest, talking about a decade of these dating apps. You know, we had someone talking about the frauds and the scams. We had a writer, a documentary maker who basically called the whole thing a cesspool of hell. And and yesterday we spoke to a sociologist that had worked for Tinder and Bumble who actually had a different perspective and a more positive take. So let's get to your take and why it's so hard to find love on dating apps. What say you?
Yeah, so me and my host, Arthur Brooks, who kind of bring an intergenerational perspective to this tech and love issue, really wanted to explore sort of what the deep fear of technology is from prior generations who are maybe less familiar with online relationship formation, and sort of juxtapose that with younger people. As you said, it's one of the most common ways that people are meeting one another these days, and sort of trying to find the gap between what tech promises to deliver to people and what it actually does. So by digging into the research, we've found that technology-mediated relationships do fall secondary to in-person interaction. Other research suggests that romantic love can be benefited when people explore their differences, but a lot of the times these apps, favor finding people who are similar to you rather than people who may have differences that you need to, work around, and the complexities of just being human and engaging with another human being. So we basically wanted our listeners to have a sounding board if they're one of those people who are skeptical of technology's ability to deliver on its promises, which is, come on the app and find love.
Yeah, Rebecca, it's so interesting, right? Because if we look at recent history, you go back just a few decades, right? And how people found their spouse. And a lot of times it was just geographic. Oh, you live near me. I've met you.
Right.
You're within 5 kilometers of me. Let's make this work. But
right.
when you have unlimited choices and unlimited matches, boy, does that make it much easier to avoid trying to work through issues in a relationship.
Exactly. And as you said, in prior generations, the options being limited element is where I think technology has its sell, right? The option, sort of the infinite nature of options on these apps can allow you to feel like, I'm not limited in the way my parents were. I can find anyone, anywhere who's most compatible to me. But at the same time, that induces exactly what you're talking about, the paradox of choice. At what point do you get lost in the mix of options and you're unable to discern what your preferences and needs are in another human being? So absolutely.
We're with Rebecca Rashid, producer of The Atlantic's How-To series, continuing our Swipe Right Week series on the program here. So, Rebecca, I guess the argument you made, it's not the technology, it's how you use the technology.
Absolutely.
Can we actually take these apps that aren't conducive to finding true love, but game the system ourselves so that they work for us?
Yes, absolutely. And again, our argument is not to discredit the accessibility that tech does provide. Let's say you're someone who's part of a community where accessibility in person is not as easy, or, you suffer from social anxiety, and this may be a helpful mediating force that allows you to sort of vet the person before you meet them in real life. And there have been, all kinds of traumas and difficulties that people have faced with romantic interactions in person. So this can be a fantastic way to sort of screen for that before an in-person interaction. So there are ways to see this as beneficial to the vetting and safety and control mediating process of dating. But at the same time, you don't want to get lost in the facade of who someone is and believe that that is synonymous with the loving relationship you hope to find. And I think that's our main point. And another thing that we wanted to reiterate is, as with anything that becomes the cultural norm, the majority of people who are looking for romantic partnership, this is sort of the default way to go about it. So we also wanted to pose a new way to think about what everyone is doing. And for those people who maybe don't want to use this method of finding their romantic partner, to feel okay in that belief. As with any minority culture, there are other socially sanctioned approaches to forming a relationship, matchmakers, arranged marriages, and you could almost see dating apps as another one of those ways of everyone pressuring you to go about something, right? So it's just an argument for us to make those people feel like, you don't have to do you don't have to go about your romantic life in the way that everyone sort of pressures you into.
Rebecca, it starts off 10 years ago on the app front with Tinder, but now there's so many different apps out there. Is there an app that does a better job or that you would say does a better job than most at trying to solve some of the issues you've outlined?
That's a good question. I'm not as, familiar with the nuances of each app, but I would guess that, apps that perhaps allow you to see more than just, visual images and photos of people, where there's more of an in-depth personality. I know I've heard that recently apps have included voice notes and videos and other things that bring sort of the realness of the person to the platform. But again, at the same time, I think, as with the expert we had on our episode, social psychologist Omri Gilat from the University of Kansas, he articulated how that face-to-face, human-to-human interaction just simply can't be replicated in the same way, regardless of the voice notes or the moving images or whatever it may be. A human being is far more complicated, and that face-to-face interaction gives you insights into who that person is in a way that is yet to be determined, whether technology can do the same.
Rebecca, you voluntarily agreed to be on this program, so now I got to ask you the tough question. Have you used dating apps? And did you find the love of your life on a dating app? What's been your experience?
So I have been experimenting with apps in my own life, perhaps more from a social psychology perspective, which is not the most helpful.
Yeah.
But in my own experience, and a lot of my work has been informed by this, is the limitlessness of these platforms is exactly what induces the paradox of choice for me. And I sort of referenced this in our episode and in our piece that, I make the analogy to walking into a grocery store and having one item that you need to buy and coming out of the grocery store with everything but that one thing you were looking for. So I think in regards to the paradox of choice, you can go onto these platforms looking for, let's say, a long-term committed relationship, but often through the game-playing nature of it, through sort of the facade of the multiple people that you see, it can be very easy to get wrapped up in the game of it rather than the outcome that you seek. And I've had a similar experience on my end. And I think that's where this sort of deeper dive and analytical approach that I've taken to love and technology and the relationship between the two sort of came from.
Oh, you're so lucky we're out of time, because I could take the deep dive with the follow-up on what you just said. Rebecca, thank you so much for coming on the program. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Elias. Happy to be here.
That's Rebecca Rashid from The Atlantic, producer of their How To series, if you want to get some more content on that front. I want to remind you that tomorrow, it's Friday. It's our last day of our Swipe Right series. And tomorrow we will have your stories of love, marriage, and failure on dating apps.